Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to United vs. Everybody. I am your host, Sean, and if you caught me making a face when the stream started, it's because I'm really not looking forward to doing this match reaction, but we are here. I am here. You are here. We are going to be diving into this result from last night as Manchester United kicked off this year's Europa League campaign with a we'll call it a lackluster 1-1 draw at home against FC Twente. So like the video, subscribe. We're going to dive right in because I'm not going to lie. Apart from Eriksen's goal, which was a really good goal, by the way, I'm not going to take nothing away from the goal. And maybe a few instances of good footwork from like Rashford. There wasn't really much about this game to really get up for. I wasn't super excited about this. I wasn't super thrilled and happy with the performance, happy with the result. But get your thoughts in the live chat, and I will kick us off here with our first chat. Did you guys watch that? I mean, obviously you guys watched it. I mean, that's why we're here, right? But let me know your thoughts as we dive right in. Oops. So, number one, were we arrogant or were we just switched off? So, you guys ever see the movie Troy? You remember that movie? It came out like 20 years ago. Can you believe it came out 20 years ago? So there's in the movie Troy, big up, Danny. Good morning, pal. In the movie Troy, there's in the opening scene, these two armies face off. I think it's like the Greeks and the Thessalonians. They're squaring off, right? And everyone's getting ready to kill each other. And instead of doing all that, the two generals, the two leaders, two kings decide, instead of having everybody kill each other, we're gonna each of us is gonna select one fighter and they're gonna fight, and that's gonna decide the battle, right? And so Thessalonians pick this huge bastard, and the Greeks pick Achilles. So Achilles is nowhere to be found. They go find sleeping. He's groggy. It's mid-morning. They're like, "What are you doing?" He shows up, no preparation, no breakfast, no nothing, right? He just puts on his helmet, grabs his sword, grabs his shield, and then he's like, all right, cool. He gets up groggy, rides his horse, and he gets there. He shows up, he wins. He beats this other guy, this huge guy with literally just one strike, and then he's done. This is what United reminded me of yesterday. They thought that, I think, were they arrogant? Did we think that we could just show up and the win was guaranteed because we're United and it was FC Twente, it was at home? Like, is that what we thought? Because it started to kind of feel like that. It was way too casual, way too slow. It felt like we thought we didn't have to try too hard. Way too many touches on the ball. Danny says, frustrating, more bad subs and decisions again. Justin, what's good, guy? FC Twente were more physical. They had more energy. They pressed us all over the pitch, which absolutely led to the goal we conceded for the equalizer. I'll get back to that a little later. Even Eriksen himself, who scored and then was responsible for conceding the goal, he said after the match, Twente just looked like they wanted it more than us, and he's absolutely right. We never looked comfortable, I thought. Like, it just looked like we just were never quite sure of the ball to play, the touch. And actually, I thought even after we scored, we played like we're not confident that we were going to be able to see out that result. And it makes sense because we tend not to be able to see our results, but that's how it looked. We just looked like we just weren't ever quite comfortable and confident ourselves. I want to talk about Bruno too, as far as this arrogance and switched off thing goes, because after a few weeks of poor performances and a steadily increasing wave of criticism from even his biggest supporters in the fan base, this display did not do Bruno any favors in terms of winning anyone back. Generally, we've given Bruno a pass just because he has that ability to create some sort of magic out of nowhere sometimes. But he only created one chance yesterday. 39 passes completed for only 75% pass accuracy, not much better than he has done already this season. Only one shot on target out of 3 shots. Lost possession 19 times yesterday, Bruno did. I don't think he should have started this match at all. We talked about that in the preview. And with Mason Mount back and fit and on the bench now for the last 2 games, there's really no reason not to bench Bruno. We have to be able to rotate. He needs to be able to be rested or even benched just for his own sake if he needs that. But the question then becomes, again, coming back to the original point, he is a player who can do things no one else does. So is resting him against Spurs the best idea? Has he even spoken after these matches? Has he even made comments? I know we've seen some comments from Eriksen, Dallo. In the past, we'd see, De Gea pop up with some comments and stuff. And we used to give Harry Maguire stick when he was captain for not coming out after a poor result and speaking. And I have not seen any comments from Bruno after these kind of performances. So let me know if I'm wrong, though. Danny says he needs to be dropped. I think he definitely needs to be dropped, arrested, benched, whatever you want to call it for whatever reasons. But Bruno was not great last night. As far as switched off continues, I feel like just like against Palace, we just couldn't break 20 down. They were sitting compact. They were pressing high with a number of players, which made it really difficult to move the ball. I thought Rashford actually was probably our best player on the night, if I'm being honest. He looked good in possession. He was confident, direct. He was beating his man with a bit of skill and a bit of pace now and then. He actually completed all 5 of his dribbles. He created 2 chances. He actually won all 7 of his defensive duels, his ground duels and his aerial duels. He was guilty of maybe 1 too many touches here and there, but every player in the world is going to be guilty of that, and we've been guilty of that several times. But I did think Rashford actually has looked good. Xerxes is really starting to frustrate me. Yeah, Danny says Rashford, Xerxes never came off. Yeah, Xerxes is starting to frustrate me, though, Danny. This isn't me giving up on anything. This isn't me writing him off. This isn't me saying he's crap or anything, or he's a flop. He just wasn't getting involved. He's not getting as involved as I'd like him to be. Little too many touches when he does have the ball, and it's not like it's like he takes too many touches to get the shot away. No urgency when he had those chances. He only played 15 passes, 14 of them were actually accurate. He only had 2 shots, only 1 was on target. He only had 27 touches and 1 dribble completed. Like, just not getting involved. Not necessarily what I want to see from a striker of his profile, that link up, build up kind of striker. Just not getting on the ball as much. Ahmad was barely involved as well. Only 36 touches, only completed 1 out of 5 dribbles, only 3 touches in the box from Ahmad, and he only attempted 22 passes on the night. Just a super quiet night from both Ahmad and Xerxes, in my opinion. And normally I would say, it's because we're heavy on the left side, but actually, if you look at the numbers from last night, it was like mid-30s percentage from middle, left, right side of the pitch. Up was concerned. On Eriksen, he grabbed his goal, yes, and it was a brilliant goal, very well taken. But for fuck's sake, Ugarte had 30 more touches than Eriksen and 30 more passes completed than Eriksen. And so it's, again, Eriksen had like one of those Bruno nights where he kind of dips in and out of the match, but he pops up with one moment, and it is a difference maker, good and bad. I've seen Ugarte getting a bit of stick after this result, but I thought he was just fine last night. 10 passes into the final third. 10 defensive actions. He won all of his tackles in the first half alone, more than anyone else in the first half, actually. I think he's giving us the security that we need in midfield. I think now that he's getting more minutes, we're going to see it more and more. Problem is we have players that are playing well, but we also have players that are not playing well, and they're not aligning right now. When it does start to align and it does click into gear, the results will come, because I think, aside from last night, in general, I'm speaking here, Tenhag's football is getting us into good positions and it's helping us create chances. I think that his decisions need a bit of work, which we're going to get into. But the results will come. We just need these players to start clicking at the same time. We've seen that we can do it. It's just not happening on a consistent basis right now. And it's really, really, really starting to frustrate me. But just moving on to something. Lack of goals will cost us this season. Sorry, my computer's doing a madness this morning. If United don't start scoring goals when it matters, and not just mean putting up 7-0 against Barnsley, and if we don't start scoring goals when it matters soon, it's going to be a long, long trophyless season for us. And we definitely won't finish anywhere near the top 4 if this doesn't change. Have I mentioned yet that United have missed the most big chances this season in the league? And according to Statman Dave, we've underperformed our XG in 5 of our 7 matches this season. Again, we're getting into positions, we're creating chances, we're just not finishing them. People give the XG stat stick, but it's a good indicator of how well you're playing and what kind of positions you're getting these opportunities in. we're just not finishing. And it's the same with how Bruno has spent the last several years as one of the best chance creators in the league. He would have more assists if we were just better at putting these chances away. It simply isn't good enough. And the players really need to have a look at themselves. Like I've said, I've already complained about Xerxes. Hoyland's back now. Maybe we'll see something different. Ten Hag's tactics are getting us into decent positions and we're creating chances. It's just we're not putting them away unless we're playing Barnsley, apparently. Maybe that's our level right now, right? Because FC Twente seems to be just a little too much for us to handle. Maybe if we could just play League One sides every week, we'll be fine. We had 19 shots against Twente last night. 16 were from inside the box alone. 5 of those were on target. And we only had 1 goal to show for it. When you get 16 shots in an opponent's box, you need to have more than just 1 goal. Like, that's ridiculous. I don't think it helped either that we were playing a little differently. And again, we were a little slow to get those shots away, which allowed Twente to get back into their shape and get bodies in the box. We played a little differently than we did against Palace, I thought, in terms of how we were dominating possession. Our formation wasn't different. We were still building out with that like 3-2 shape with Dalu and Ugarte moving into midfield. The problem was kind of like Liverpool, FC Twente pressed with 4 high up the pitch in between our midfield and the rest of our players. It was very difficult to move the ball. Add to that, again, we were very, very slow last night, very, very languid on the ball, almost to the point where we looked half asleep. And it's no surprise then that we struggled to be as dominant as maybe we should have been. Nick, welcome back, bud. Build-up was too slow. And before you say that's what Ten Hag wants, you have to remember that while we do build out from the back and we do take care of the ball, he also does have these moments where he does urge Onana to get the ball away quicker when the opportunity is on. I can't remember that match it was from earlier this season. Counterattacking opportunity was on, and Onana just wasn't taking advantage of it. And Ten Hag's on the touchline screaming at him. Similar situation last night. We had opportunities, but Onana just, I don't know if it's a confidence thing or what. He just is like, flat out refuses to get that ball away quickly. And that's a big problem for us when you have a team like Twente who's really like compact offensively. The tempo was slow. And as a result, Twente were able to get men behind the ball very quickly, very easily. And it just stifled us. We're just passing around. At Selhurst Park, we were direct. We moved the ball with confidence. We're getting into dangerous areas. We created 5 big chances against Palace. We created 0 big chances last night. 67% against possession against Palace, 57% possession last night. And if you want to even zoom out the lens further from just last night, so again, we scored the fewest goals in the top 12 teams in the league so far this season. We've only scored 5 goals. That's the worst of any team in the top 12. It's not an improvement on last season either. We scored the fewest in the top 8 last season. Even West Ham scored more goals than us last year. Ten Hag's first season was very similar. Again, just 58 goals. I think that was the same we scored last season. And again, Ten Hag's first season, that was the fewest in the top 6. We're not scoring goals now. I told people that when Ten Hag was appointed, that we shouldn't expect high-scoring games. You just don't see a lot of high-scoring games from Dutch managers. It just doesn't tend to happen. Louis van Gaal is the same way. Koeman, same way. It's just, and it's not even necessarily the lack of goal numbers that I think is going to hurt us. It's simply the lack of clinical finishing when we do get these chances. It's something that we've struggled with for years. And if it doesn't start clicking, it will not end well for Ten Hag. What we got? What are you guys saying in the chat here? Danny says, way too slow and hesitant. The players are afraid to play the hard passes. Yeah, just too afraid to move the ball. Nick says, bad subs. Yeah, it was not good. But if we don't start putting away these chances, it's really not going to end well for Ten Hag. So moving on. Number 3, no excuses. Okay. Last year, we had injuries. Valid excuse, I get it. Now, I was critical of the way Ten Hag continued to try to play despite the injuries, but the injuries were there. You can't deny it. We were the most injury hit squad in the league last season. Okay. First season, Ten Hag's first season, doesn't have players yet. He's inherited a mess. I get all that. This year, no excuses. I said it in our prediction video, and I'll say it again. There won't be any room for excuses this season, especially when it comes to performances and results like this one. There's no excuse for not getting more from this squad against no offense, but against sides like FC Twente. What's going to happen when we place the next squad? Some of these other teams, PAOK, Bodo Glimt, Victoria Plzeň, like, are we just going to struggle because they want it more than us, because they have more energy, because they're more physical than us, because it means more to them to get a draw against United than it does for them to win the match? Are we going to struggle every single time this happens? No, it's zero excuses. On last night's match, though, there were so many instances where I'm not having excuses from anyone. Tenhag again failed to impact the game with the subs. Some of those were too late, and I think that some of them were just not the right decision to make. Again, putting aside the fact that Bruno really should have been subbed off, we didn't make our first change until the 67th minute. And it was Garnacho for Ahmad, who, I mean, yes, Ahmad really wasn't impacting the game at all, but a simple like-for-like sub in a situation like that, where Garnacho's speed and directness maybe wasn't going to make that much of a difference with the way Twente were playing at the back. It lacked any sort of imagination, any sort of tactical changes there. And then it wasn't until the 79th minute that we made a few more changes. Now, only 4 subs, and 3 of them were with 10 minutes left in the match. I don't really know what you're expecting to change when that's the way you're going about your substitutions. Is that trust in some of the underperforming players that he started with? Is it stubbornness? Is he just out of ideas? You guys tell me what you think on that one. On the players themselves, though, again, no excuses. There's no excuse, in my opinion, for Licha and Maguire being caught so high up the pitch so many times. Now, I'm not saying there's no excuse for them playing a high line, but they are getting caught on these high positions trying to make challenges far too many times. We've seen it from Licha time and time again. Maguire was really high up the pitch for their equalizer. There's no excuse for their right back, Van Rooij, to be able to get the ball outside of his own box in the right back position and carry it all the way into our half of the pitch. He beat 5 United players along the way, you guys, to do that. He totally, like, Rashford just made pretty much a less than half of a challenge to try to, at the start of that play. 2 United players, I forget who it was, were basically parted like the Red Sea for Van Rooij to split right through with the ball. No excuse for Maguire sliding in like Casemiro to try to break up that play. No excuse for Eriksen, when we did win the ball eventually, to sit there on it with his back to the play and then just hold on to it for too long, only to lose it. And they had 3 players ready to go. That was embarrassing. Like, why are you holding on to the ball that long? You should have made a quick ground pass to Onana, or you should have just booted it. It was ridiculous, especially when you consider how they were pressing us all night. Like, you're not going to get that much time, especially with the momentum in that play alone. No excuse in that play for Onana being beaten so easily at his near post for that equalizer. You literally could have driven a tank through the space that Onana left at his near post on that goal. No excuse for Bruno trying a useless shot from 40 yards out in literally the last second of the game, when we could have maybe put that ball back into the box and gotten a little kind of chippy little header or something, or it could have pinballed around and we could have gotten something. He could have easily put that back into the area instead of just trying that just weak shot from 40 yards out. I get that he's the captain and he wants to take responsibility and he lives for those moments, but it was the wrong decision. What are you guys saying? Mount on for Bruno should have been stunned in the 65th minute, and Eriksen for Højlund, and let Højlund and Xerxes play together for 15 minutes. Yeah, I wanted to see Xerxes and Højlund play together, Danny. I wanted to see how that looked. Bruno is just when we didn't have enough depth, it was easy to justify having to play Bruno. But now that we've got it and we've got some different players, and add to that, Bruno is underperforming, we have to make hard decisions right now. Bruno, and I said it a couple of times at Loaded Dice. Now, again, I don't know what's going on in the player's head, but I kept calling it when I was watching with the guys at Loaded Dice, new contract-itis with Bruno. We saw it with Marcus Rashford last season. He gets that new contract, and then for some reason, the performances just dip. I'm not saying that he's coasting, because I don't think Bruno was that kind of player, but for some reason, something has switched this season for Bruno. Look at that. I didn't spill it this time. Now, some of you are probably watching this and you're saying to the screen, Sean, you know that we drew, right? Like, we didn't lose. I know that. But this feels like a loss because we should have won this, and we should have won this easily. This isn't like Palace where we played well and we just couldn't get the goal because it just didn't happen. I get that. Like, I can take dropped points if we play well. It's going to happen, but I don't like it. What I will not tolerate, though, is a shit performance. And last night was a shit performance. I'm not panicking by any means, not yet. But this sort of result does not look good for Erik ten Hag. And it is not like it's going to get any better in the next few games in the Europa League or in the Premier League. We have to travel to Porto in a few weeks for our next Europa League match. And then we have to travel to Turkey to play Jose Mourinho's Fenerbahce. Porto didn't look great against Bodo Glimt. If you guys watched that match yesterday, I did watch it, and Porto do not look like the same Porto. So I feel a little better, but at the same time, traveling to Porto is always going to be the difference maker. And I definitely wouldn't plan on us taking any points at Fenerbahce, because do we really think Jose Mourinho won't shithouse his way to 3 points against us? It's not going to get any better in Europa League. On the league, we have Spurs this weekend, Porto midweek, and then we have Aston Villa right before the internet. A few more of these kind of results and a few more of these kind of performances, and it's going to be squeaky bum time for Ten Hag. I back the guy. I back a manager. I always will. But it needs to get going, because it's not going to be good for him. These are his players. This is his third season. He needs to take on the responsibility that he'll be handed for these results. Whether the results are his responsibility firsthand or not, the responsibility comes to him. If I go to a restaurant and I get poor service and the manager comes out to me, it's not the manager's fault, but it is the manager's responsibility. Ten Hag, it may not be his fault that a player can't put away chances, but Ten Hag's ultimately the one who's going to take responsibility for that, because that's just what happens in football. But you guys let me know your thoughts. Let me see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Top player says Jose will diddle United. Jose just always has an axe to grind with us. He did it when he was our manager, and when he Spurs manager, and whenever he played Chelsea, the way Chelsea treated him. Jose he shows up and Jose's a tournament manager. Nick says Porto became the third best team in Portuguese league in the last 2 seasons. Porto do not look the same. If you I was watching the Bodo Glimt match yesterday, and there's a couple players in Bodo Glimt that we'll want to watch out for, specifically Haug. But Porto lost a lot of big players. They didn't start a couple of their better players. They didn't start Alan Varela, for instance, but they lost some strikers. Their wingers don't look as good as some of the ones they had last season, and obviously no Pepe, no Taremi, no Evan Nielsen. Porto don't look great. I'm not saying that we're just going to be fine, because, again, you got to travel to Portugal and play them, but they don't look great. So they got beat last night. It's just we're not great either. Danny says Ten Hag will be gone in January. Danny, if we don't do well in these we need wins against Spurs and Villa, and I think he is going to need a win against Porto. Because the international break in October is coming up in a few weeks. I don't even know if he'll make it past. I'm not trying to panic or anything, but these results can't continue, because if he doesn't get maximum points, I worry for him, because there are managers out there. The problem is, again, it doesn't look good for Ineos if they had the summer and they chose to give him a new contract. They chose to stick with him. They spoke with Tuchel. They decided not to go with Tuchel, and then if they turn around and sack Ten Hag, it doesn't look good for Ineos either. And so I do think that I worry, but I'm not going to panic. And I don't think that Ineos are going to panic yet either, but something's got to click here. Top player says the system has been nonsensical for a while. The system isn't necessarily nonsensical, in my opinion. The system is working. We are among the top teams in the Premier League right now for creating chances. His system is getting us into good positions. His system was very good against Palace too. It's just we can't put our chances away. And I think that Ten Hag's biggest problem these last few matches has been the substitutions and team selection. He's just sticking with Bruno. Bruno needs to be benched. We're bringing on subs a little too late. Some of the players he's taken off are not the ones who should be taken off. And it's impacting the match, but it's not doing it in a positive way, in my opinion. Danny says the midfield was wide open again. Yeah. Problem was, is again, if you look back, we're building out with a 3 and a 2 with Dalu and Ugarte in midfield, but Twente had 4 players in between Dalu and Ugarte and our attackers. It made it very difficult to get that ball into those advanced positions. That's why we were so slow. They were pressing, and we weren't really willing to try to take anybody on, to try to make those passes, and it caused us a bit of. We just look like we should ourselves when we play a pressing team. We have done that for years, though. That's not just a tenhag thing. It's these players and their mentality is weak. It's not what it needs to be. There's no resilience. There's no self-confidence. We've struggled against pressing sides for many seasons now, and it was the same last night. We just don't have it in us. Top player says, I would try Ugarte, Manu, Xerxes, Ugarte, Casemiro. Yeah, I'm surprised no Casemiro last night. I was very surprised that Eriksen started based on just how much he's played. But again, he's almost made himself undroppable the way he has played. Like, it's so strange to me that we have Eriksen now who's looking 10 times better than Bruno Fernandes this season. Bruno Fernandes is the one that we were saying for years, like, he can't be dropped. He's creating chances. And now Bruno looks like he just needs to sit down for a couple matches. But the problem with Eriksen is you can't play him this many games, this many weeks. It was like Varane all over again. But he's proven me wrong, though, because he got a goal last night. But he also was, again, this is why I don't like Eriksen in that deeper position on the pitch. We saw it again last night. He's just not physical enough, and he gave away the ball. Danny says, one positive thing, we're playing the high line, even with Slab. Yeah, I don't. It's positive that we're sticking with the system, but I don't think that system really is good for Maguire. I really don't. I think that playing that system with Maguire is asking for trouble. And all it takes is just literally just a bit of communication between Maguire and Licha, or just having Maguire sit a little back, or like 5 yards deeper or something. It just worries me a little bit. Top player. Are the contracts causing problems with team selection? I hope not. I hope that's not the case. We know that was an issue. That's been an issue for some clubs. I don't know if it's been an issue under Ineos with Ten Hag. Ten Hag strikes me, though, as the kind of manager where if owners are telling him who to play, that I don't feel like he's the kind of manager who would stand for that. But that's just my thoughts. It does happen, though, that like when Ollie was at Cardiff, Ollie literally after he got sacked was saying, like, he was basically told who he had to play and stuff. He had little power when it came to team selection, and that was at Cardiff. So I don't know what's going on here. I mean, there are teams you know that the owner basically picks the team if you look at like Madrid or Barcelona or something. But it's I know that the contract situation, though, top player, I know that tends to, like, I'm not saying it's the cause. I'm looking at correlation. We saw it with De Gea. Literally every time De Gea's contract talks came up, his form would drop. Rashford got a new contract last season. His form dropped. Bruno just got a new contract this season. His form dropped. I'm not saying there's causation. I'm saying there's correlation. You guys make of it what you will, but the correlation is there, clear as day for everyone to see. So I don't know, but something's got to click. Bruno's having an off game. The problem is, do you trust? That's a big question. Do you trust Mount, Eriksen, Xerxes to start and get results against Spurs, on the road against Porto, at home against Aston Villa? Do you trust those players to get results more than you trust Bruno? Based on the way he's playing, right now you'd have to say yes, because you have to also, as a manager, be able to drop players who aren't performing, and Bruno is not performing. Danny says, if Spurs turn up, it could be brutal. What do you think? We have to trust. I think you have to. I think you have to trust the players. At some point, Ten Hag is going to have to trust the players that he brought into the club, right? That's why we have them. Spurs. I know I was watching Stretford Paddock this morning, and Jay Motti thinks we're going to beat Spurs. I'm not so confident, especially with a high line. I don't think Spurs are great, personally. They were great a little bit, but I think last season was a bit of new manager bounce. I don't think Ange is that great a manager. I think he's basically just David Moyes, who plays a high line. But you never know the way we're playing this season. I mean, I wouldn't put it past us to drop points against Spurs. But top player says, I like Xerxes. build up, but he is not quick enough for a lone striker. Yeah, I don't think Xerxes is ever going to be this kind of lone lead the line striker who's going to, play off the shoulder of a defender, who's going to, score you 20, 25 goals. He's not that guy. He reminds me more of like a Firmino, or even like how Martial used to play. He used to drop a little deeper, get involved with, link up with Rashford and whatnot. And he said himself, he's more like a 9.5. But that's also why in my match preview, I wanted him to start in that 10 role, and I wanted Højlund to start as the 9 because I thought that I want to see how that works. But yeah, he's just not moving fast enough for me. His hold up play was decent. But I think sometimes he defaults to that hold up back to goal kind of thing, where there were times where he could have, taken a shot off. He could have spun and got a shot away rather than try to always link up and be that hold up player. But he's young. But I mean, the problem is we can't keep saying that he's young. We can't pull an Arsenal and saying trust the process. It's a young squad. We can't keep signing only young players. Eventually, we're going to have to sign players who are already ready and who don't need development, because we can't bank on that. I get that we want to build a squad, but we need players who for the here and now as well. And that doesn't mean I want a bunch of 35-year-olds, but we do need players that you're not going to have to like micromanage in that kind of case. Nick says, seems hard to gain 3 points against Spurs. Yeah, we'll see. The problem with Spurs is they don't really have a good striker, but Solanke loves a goal against us, so I wouldn't put it past Solanke to finally get a decent performance. Son hasn't looked great this season. Obviously, we'll do a match preview ahead of the weekend, but I'm not 100% confident in getting a result against Spurs. Top player says, I think the Villa game will be harder than Spurs. Morgan Rogers has been great. Yeah, I think Villa is the one I worry about more. And again, 3 seasons ago, people wouldn't be saying that. Under like Dean Smith or something, like I would never worry about Villa. But this is why I've said many times, managers are more important than clubs when it comes to, a player joining or like form or something like that. Managers have a big role in that. Unai Emery is not the same manager as Dean Smith at Aston Villa. Nick says 9.5 should be a new role. Yeah, I think it's kind of becoming the thing. I think you're seeing less and less the out and out number 9. There's not many players who are doing that as much. Benzema was never an out and out number 9. Harry Kane in the last several seasons was dropping a little deeper, getting involved. Some of the out and out number 9s are kind of moving away. Like Osimhen is not. He's playing where Galatasaray right now. Lukaku is playing with Napoli. I think there's just a little bit more tactical stuff than just whipping a ball into the box for someone to get on the end of or something now. So we will see what happens. But that is going to do it for me, you guys. Let me know your thoughts. Yeah, Haaland's probably up there. I think that even Haaland, though, I think probably in a few years, he could probably go to Barcelona and take over for Lewandowski, and it would be a very smooth transition. But overall in football, you're not seeing as much. I think, and it's not that they're going out of style necessarily. It's more that these new systems are kind of starting to come into play as well and be more prevalent. You're seeing it a little bit with midfielders, or even like center backs and fullbacks. Like City don't have a left back. Guardiola is not a left back. Guardiola is a left-sided center back. But the way people are playing now, you're seeing a lot of fullbacks who are center backs who are able to play as fullbacks, so they can kind of drop into this building out from the back as a 3 a little bit more easily. Ben White's not a right back. Like I guess Guardiola is not a left back, but that's just the way people are starting to kind of move on. Koundé at Barcelona, he's not a right back. He's a center back, but he plays as a right back. Timber, not a left back, but he's playing as a left back for Arsenal. So it's interesting, but that is going to do it. Danny says Pep won a league with 4 CBs last year. Yeah, Pep's always buying CBs. So Pep always has four brand new CBs. Top player says it's because hard tackles are being carded, so you can just play lightweight strikers. Yeah, it could be. I think that I was saying again yesterday, and real quick before I let you guys go, that I was missing Wayne Rooney yesterday because we were getting some good tackles in. We were getting some hard tackles like Leach's when he got carded. I don't have a problem with Leach's tackle. I think the game should have more tackles like that. I think the game is too soft. I miss players like Roy Keane. I miss players like Wayne Rooney. I don't think that Leach should have got carded against Palace, for instance, for that non-contact, like 2-footed stomp. He didn't slide in, and he just jumped in the air. So It is what it is. But thank you guys for stopping by this morning. Top player, thanks for checking out the channel, man. Appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe if you are new. Unless there's any big breaking news, probably be back for the Spurs preview later on this week. Got a busy weekend. So until then, thanks, Danny. Thank Nick. Thank you, top player, for joining. Thank you, Justin, if you're still around. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. And I will see you on the next one. Later.